I don't know about you guys, but I've definitely seen a shift in D&D content in the last couple of years. A lot of people seem to be more interested or getting more interested in having miniatures to represent themselves on the tabletop and actually playing games on bespoke scenery tables and having encounters in more of a kind of three-dimensional world. And I think that's absolutely fantastic. That really does help me visualize what I'm doing, where I'm supposed to be going, what my goals are and stuff like that. So I much prefer seeing that. I know it's not for everybody, and I'm not saying one way is better than the other. I'm just saying for me personally, I prefer the more three-dimensional world of D&D for your encounters. With that in mind, I know there's a bunch of DMs out there that are moving into that space now who have never perhaps painted miniatures before. And that's where I'm going to step in and try and help you guys get some miniatures painted in a very quick and accessible manner. Even more quickly and more accessible than my average video here on this channel. I'm just going to show you how to get a Dragonborn warrior that's provided to me by the sponsor of today's video, Dragon Trappers Lodge, but we'll get more into them a little bit later. And I'm going to show you guys how to get that model painted to a very nice standard, perfectly acceptable for the tabletop, using only 6 paints and about a half an hour, 40 minutes of your time. If that's something that excites you, then stick around and enjoy this video. Before I get into it, I just want a huge thank you to all of my patrons. Without you guys, I would not be able to keep doing what I'm doing. The benefits to becoming one of my patrons is access to a private Discord server, and you also get an extra video every single week. So that's 52 extra videos a year just for you guys. There has never been a better time to get involved. Links to all of that below. Okay, without further ado, let's get painting a Dragonborn. Okay, this is the miniature I chose to 3D print from the Dragon Trappers Lodge Patreon this month. It is an absolutely stunning Dragonborn miniature wearing heavy armor and carrying a large sword. A beautiful sweeping cape. Now at first glance this miniature will look quite daunting, quite scary to paint, and that's the idea. I'm trying to dissuade that idea from you guys and help you get some paint on the model. So all you need to do is give the model a spray, a prime of any bright color you want. If you have a bright gray or a bright white color, spray it with that, making sure you get pretty good coverage. So I'm going to start with the contrast paint from Games Workshop, Mantis Warrior Green, which is a nice bright green color for the skin of this dragon. Now, of course, as you know, as D&D players yourselves, you know the dragons come in many different colors. So this is the color that you can swap out with any other color you choose. You can pick one of the yellow contrasts from Games Workshop, one of the red contrasts, one of the speed paints, army speed paints, whatever you want. Whatever color you want your dragon scales to be, pick out an appropriate contrast color for that, and just apply it all over the scales. From here, I'm going to move over to Lead Belcher, which is a nice dark silver metallic color. Any dark silver metallic color will work a treat here, and all we're going to do is paint up all of his plate armor. You can be quite sloppy with the previous coat, the green coat, because obviously we're going to be painting over the rest of the miniature with other paints. And metallics really do work a treat. They do give great coverage over pretty much any base coat, even this bright one where it shouldn't really work. It gives a nice solid block of metallic, which is what you're going to need for this guy wearing his heavy plate armor, which will work for a bunch of different classes of D&D. Even when I first 3D printed this miniature and held it up, I was a little bit daunted. And that's where the idea for trying to break it down and make it even easier than I normally do for you guys popped into my head, and I decided that's the direction I wanted to take this video in. As you can see, I'm just taking my time and painting each and every single metallic panel on this model that dark silver color. From here, I'm going to jump over to a bright gold color. Retributor Armor is my favorite gold paint. And for this, I'm going to pick some of the trim on the model. Obviously, I feel like he's a little bit too silver, and I want to break up that armor using some kind of gold filigree, so some extra design. So you can just literally choose some parts of the gold of the armor to be gold. Whatever you want, more or less, it's totally up to you. I usually do the pommel and hilt of a sword in gold and the blade in silver. It's very traditional looking. I think it looks really cool. And then I literally inspect the model for different parts of armor. I'm like, okay, that bit would look nice gold and that bit would look nice gold. Okay, let's do that. And obviously every time I paint a different section of the model gold, I take a little step back. I look at the model and think, does it need more? Does it need less? And if you do decide that you've gone too far, you're like, oh, maybe I have too much gold on this. You can simply pick up that dark silver again and paint over any gold you want. So these are the sections that I want: his shoulder pad, his kind of neck armor, some of his knee pads and bits and pieces like that. I brought the Flesh Tears Red, which is a dark, rich red contrast, and I'm going to use this for all the fabric on my Dragonborn. I really do quite enjoy how this model is turning out so far. And the fact that the Dragon Trappers Lodge Patreon this month has an entire army of Dragonborn. I've never even seen an army of Dragonborn. The concept of an army of Dragonborn is so cool that I may just have to print off some more of these miniatures and get them painted up. Sorry, the camera went out of focus a little bit there. After that, we're going to go to Skeleton Horde and just apply that over all of the parts of the miniature that have bone. So obviously there's lots of tusks and horns built into this guy's armor, and we're going to give that a quick coat of Skeleton Horde. Nothing crazy, nothing special. Contrast gives great coverage. It's very quick, easy and accessible paint to use. They're not the cheapest paints in the world, I will say, but if you build up a good collection of maybe 10-15 different colors, there's virtually no miniature that you can't paint. And that's good because the sponsor of today's video, which is of course the Dragon Trappers Lodge, provides so many crazy, beautiful and wonderful STL D&D files every single month. One of my favorite ones, this one, is the Dungeons and Doggos expansion, which they have given you a mission to use in 5e, which I think is absolutely fantastic. Just giving you a unique take on the 3D printed world. They have a couple different tiers. Trapper tier is for the D&D enthusiast. The Soldier tier is for the wargaming enthusiast. And this will allow you to choose which one you want to do, whether you're a D&D DM and you just want a couple of crazy monsters and some extra heroes each month, or whether you want to be the veteran tier and play through war games using the one-page rules game system, which these guys have compatible rules for. You are able to do that using Dragon Trappers Lodge. I mean, look at the pug chimera. It's so cool. I'm a huge fan of what they do. They bring a bit of lightheartedness to an otherwise bleak and desolate community. And the Fiends of Incarnox is where I got my miniature of this month. Like I said, it is an entire Dragonborn range of miniatures, mounted and all. And as soon as I saw them, I knew that these were the miniatures I was going to use to paint in this video. If this interests you at all, I will leave links to the Dragon Trappers Lodge below, and you can check that out for yourself. Now that I'm back to painting the miniature, all the base coats are on the middle. So what that means to me is all of the model has color on it. Every section has its skin, has color, the armor has color, the cloak has color. Now, to add a little bit of definition, a little bit of contrast to the model, I'm now going to throw a shade all over it. I'm going to choose Nuln Oil, which is kind of like a black shade. This will work really well for all the metallics, all the reds. It may be a little bit too dark for the skin. At least I was worried it was going to be a little bit too dark for the skin when I was applying it, but it turned out perfectly well. And with that, that will be the end of me applying paint to the miniature. The last thing I will do is add some basing material. If you're curious as to how I base miniatures, I have an entire playlist filled with how I paint miniatures, and you can choose whichever one of those you want to give you the effect that you want. But it's nothing crazy. Once the shade has dried, and I got to add some texture paste and some little grass tufts, which is little fake plants on the base, it really does give me a result that I'm incredibly happy with. So just take your time, apply the shade all over the entire miniature, controlling yourself, making sure it doesn't pool anywhere, add a little bit of a nice base, and the final result is I think, a perfectly acceptable Dragonborn miniature that I would be delighted to put into a game of D&D or into a tabletop war game. I would love to know if you guys enjoyed this kind of video, if any D&D players did check it out, what you think of this, and if you would like it to become a series in the future where I tackle different D&D characters, showing you guys how to very quickly and accessibly paint them, please let me know. Also, if you would like me to push this paint job even further and see how I would take it to the next level, please let me know as well, and I will do another video on that. A couple of high-res images just to finish it off. And I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Okay guys, I think that I have achieved what I set out to do. I have a Dragonborn warrior painted up and ready for a tabletop. Like I said at the beginning, I only used 6 paints to achieve this. I'm really happy with the final result, and I hope you guys are as well. A huge thank you to all of my patrons, and a huge thank you to Dragon Trappers Lodge for sponsoring this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure you give it a like. Ask me any questions you want in the comments below. I will get back to each and every one of you guys. And if you enjoyed today's content and want to see more, subscribe. Thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end. I'll see you in the next video.